The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. Mr. Francois Pongso, before we broke, you told the court that you took refuge in the French embassy and then you were evacuated and you went along National Road number 5 and then you reached kilometer 13 in search for your friends who were of foreign nationals and who are Christian, Catholic. And you intended to bring them back to stay in the French embassy at that time. So you left the embassy along National Road number 6 through to kilometer number 6 along National Road number 5. Who did you go along with at that time? There were 2 Khmer Rouge soldiers and another French national who was a teacher. He was the driver. And there were 2 Khmer Rouge soldiers going along with us. And I went along all the way to Prek-Pano. I did not see anyone along the street, but when I reached Prek-Pano, I saw seas of people in the paddy fields. Question. What was your observation of the situation along the street when you were traveling down to Prek-Pano? Did you notice any dead bodies scattered on the street or people around along the streets? Response. No, I did not see any corpses. I would not say that there was no dead bodies, but I just did not see those dead bodies. Question. When you were traveling to Prek-Pano along the way, did you witness any events, for example, people being arrested by the Khmer Rouge soldiers in order to forcibly evacuate them out of the city? Response. None. I did not see anyone, not even the Khmer Rouge soldier, not even the civilians along the street. Question. Did you, when you reached kilometer 13 or Prek-Pano, did you went to see the people over there when you saw seas of people as you describe it? Did you mingle with them or you just saw them from the distance? Response. I was inside the car. I did not get out of the car because we were terrified at that time. I was terrified myself. There were Khmer Rouge soldiers carrying rifles. I saw people whom I knew before. I dare not even talk to them. I only actually signal them through my eye. We use our eye contacts to communicate, but we did not even use words to communicate. Question. Do you recall the date when you went out of the French embassy to Prek-Pano along with the 2 Khmer Rouge soldiers? Do you recall the date you went there? Response. I do not recall it clearly. But it could have been 5 or 6 days following the 17th of April, around 5 to 6 days following the 17th of April, but I do not recall exactly. The President, thank you. You said earlier that on the 18th of April, you stayed in the French embassy. Is that correct? On the 18th of April, it was the glorious day of the Khmer Rouge. At that time, we did not have place or shelter to stay. Actually, we slept under the bamboo trees. Question: can you tell the court the overall condition of your living, particularly people in the French embassy? What was the situation like in the French embassy at the times? And could you tell the court the categories of people who took refuge in the French embassy? And what was the main events that came to your mind, or you can still recall, when you were staying in French embassy? Response. In French embassies, there were around 500 foreigners, ranging from Americans to the leader of CIA. And there were other foreign nationals. There was one Laotian. There were altogether around 500 foreigners. And there were around 500 Cambodians too. The Cambodian who took refuge over there, the majority of whom were the former soldier of the previous regimes. I do not recall their names. There were other soldiers who retreated before the 16th of April. They also took refuge over there. And a few days after that, around the 18th or 19th of April, now I would like to describe the activities on the 18th and the 19th of April. We talked to military personnel who wanted to seek refuge in the French embassy. And then they told us that actually the embassy is the sovereign territory of a foreign government. So they tried to seek refuge in the French embassy. They wanted to stay inside, but we tried to explain them, but they could not understand. And on the 20th, there was one soldier who is in an advanced age already. Actually, he called a meeting of all nationals who were staying in the French embassy, and he told us that Comrade Khieu Samphan wanted to meet all comrades here in order to rearrange the revolution. Khieu Samphan wanted to come to talk to all people in the French embassy, but he was engaged in rearranging the revolution. So at that time, the Cambodian ladies who got married to French national, they could stay in the French embassy. As for men, they had to leave. They had to leave the French embassy in order to work with the Cambodian people in general. So on the 20th of April, the situation was depressing because around 25 Cambodian men who got married to French ladies, they were separated. They had to leave the French embassy. there was one French lady who is very young, and her husband was a former former nurse at Calumet Hospital. She refused to stay in the French embassy. She refused to be separated from her husband, so she had to accompany her husband. She decided to leave the French embassy. And then one of them said, next year or 1 year, in 1 year time, we would see each other in Jean-Élysées. I could not recall the name of that person. But on the 20th of April, it was the hardest day of their life because they were separated from their loved one on the day from the French embassy. So, and later I learned from others that the Angka separated the soldiers from the civilians, and they had to go in different directions. So they had to leave the embassy compound from that time onward. And I encouraged Ibn Sur, whom I had some sense of affection. I asked him. Actually, I knew that they killed some of the soldiers or army commanders, but they did not kill the people. And then on the 19th of April, there were some soldiers standing outside the French embassy compound. They demanded that the French embassy hand over the 7 super traitor, namely Bonho Serimatak. Bonho was the former official at the Senate, and Munivand, who was connected to the former King Norodom Sihanouk, and there was another person whom I do not recall. We wanted to protest, but they actually pointed AK rifle against us. They asked the French embassy to hand over the 7 super traitors to them. So we had no choice. We had to surrender them to. We did not know what happened to them and their fate afterwards. And normally Khmer Rouge killed those people. I heard from others the ways that they were executed, but I did not witness it by myself. But I learned that those people were all executed by the Khmer Rouge by various means. And then the Khmer Rouge also sent a group of them to the border. And then later on, there were around some 500 Pakistanis, and we were the ones who left the latest on the 7th of May 1975. We had to travel along National Road number 4, and we reached somewhere before we reached Kampong Spil province or Ong Snuol. And then we reached Odong and Omleang all the way to Kampong Chnang. And in Kampong Chnang, Angka provided us sufficient food, and they were friendly to us. And the next morning, we were sent to Posat on the trucks. And then we reached Posat, we had to change our truck. And before we reached Battambang, Angka allowed us to relax for a few hours, and then we had to travel overnight across Battambang provincial towns, and then we reached Poipat around 6 o'clock in the morning. So from the French embassy all the way to the Cambodian-Thai border, I did not see anyone, not even the Khmer Rouge soldier. I did not see the civilian. In Phnom Penh, in Odong, Kampong Chnang, Posat, all the way, I did not see a single person. When we thought that we were living from a ghost country. I did not see any corpses, any dead body. I did not say that they did not kill any people, but I just did not see the dead bodies. The President. Thank you. Just now you said that people forced a certain group of people to leave the French embassy. One group of them is the Cambodian men with French wives. They were supposed to go out to the field to work with the people. And another group is the so-called 7 super traitors. And just now you recall only a few of them by names. So my question to you now is that when they were separating the couples, the Cambodian husband with the French wife, how many of them and how did they get them out of the French embassy? Or they simply order that they left the French embassy and then they could go anywhere or to the countryside, or they use any other transport means in order to take them out of the French embassy? Can you enlighten the court on that? Response. The so-called 7 super traitor, I did not see them by my own eyes because Francois Bizot was standing at the gate, but I was at the back. I only heard there was an announcement to leave, announcement asking them to leave, and I heard that Sri Matak at that time was very rather articulate at that time. And as for the Cambodian men who had French wife, they had to leave with all Cambodian civilians. They left with other civilians. I told the Cambodians who were inside the French embassy, I told them to leave. To leave the French embassy, or sooner or later the Khmer Rouge would come and get them. So they had better leave. And then there was one man who, by the name of Tip, something like that, I asked him not to leave, and I told him that if he left the embassy now, he would die the next day, but if he stay here, probably he could live 1 or 2 weeks longer. And then some people were taken from the French embassy and they were placed at a place somewhere around the old stadium, and then the Khmer Rouge separate them, try to segregate them between soldiers and civilians. And I was told that they killed some of those soldiers in the old stadium, but that was what I heard. I did not witness the execution myself. Question. You said that Sri Matak, before he left, he met with the French counselor attached to the French embassy. Do you recall the counselor's name? I was the personal interpreters of the counselor. The French at that time were not clear between the diplomatic relation with Lon administration. Before there was the ambassador, but later on the diplomatic relation between Cambodia and French were at the ambassador level at that time, and then later on there were certain problems with the two governments, the London government and Cambodian governments, and then they withdrew the ambassador. The French wanted to recognize the Khmer Rouge because the Khmer Rouge was supported by the then Prince Norodom Sihanouk. So at that time the diplomatic relations were reduced to charge d'affaires, and there was a counselor, Jean Dirac, and then he was demoted to the position of vice counselor only. So actually at that time, in terms of the diplomatic level between French and London soldiers were reduced to the smallest level compared at that time, because they were waiting for the Khmer Rouge government at that time, I think, before it was promoted to the ambassador level. Question. At that time, you were the interpreter. Were there any verbal protest at that time in order that those people could stay in the French embassy? Did you observe that there was any diplomatic discussions in relation to how those people who took refuge in the French embassy be treated or prevented from being taken away by the Khmer Rouge? Response. There was no protest. There was no negotiator at all at that time. We wanted to negotiate, but the Khmer Rouge were not actually ready to negotiate. So there was no negotiation undertaken. You may ask Mr. François Bizot, because he could respond to this question more clearly, because he contacted the Khmer Rouge, and as for myself, I contacted with the Cambodians who were in the French embassy compound at that time. As for Mr. Bizot, he had direct contact with the Khmer Rouge at that time. Question. You also said that in the French embassy at that time there were mixed nationalities, not only the French and Cambodians, but could you please tell the court the various nationalities that who were seeking refuge in the French embassy at that time? Please, Mr. François Pongso, the mic is not on yet. Please wait until you see the red light on the mic. Response. There are mixed nationalities. Laotian, I guess some South Vietnamese, Americans, particularly journalists. They stayed in the residence of the ambassador, and there were some CIA. Actually, I was surprised because the Khmer Rouge was very courteous to foreigners. And they probably did not want to mistreat the foreigners. They did not intend to mistreat us. It was surprising because they did not want to hurt foreigners. At that time, I was 31, 32, or 33 years of age. I got used to living in the countryside, but for other elderly French also, at that time I was considered myself used. I thought that the Khmer Rouge was very courteous. They courteous in the ways that the Khmer Rouge considered to be courteous at that time. Question. Beside the French embassy, to your knowledge, do you know that there were there any gathering in other embassy compound, other foreign embassies compounds other than French embassy? Response. No, there was no any other embassy at that time. There was a Soviet embassy. Back then it was called Soviet embassy. They came to Phnom Penh by airplanes on the 16th of April, and they actually put a signboard on the embassy. The signboard read, "We Communist Brotherhood." So the Khmer Rouge went to the Soviet embassy compound. They opened the fridge and they took the eggs from the fridge, and then they dropped it one after another. And then they told the Soviet counterpart that you were a fake communist, you were not good communist. So you see, we had the eggs, and then this egg we should not eat it now because we have to wait until these eggs hatch, and then they get the hens, and then we will get more hens or more chicken to eat. So actually for East Germany, they consider themselves communist. They actually try to implicate the French. They said that they were mistreated by the French, so on and so forth, and then they hate the French. But later on, it was not an issue. The matter was sorted out. Later on, there was a French couple. They were considered pure communists. They came along with Martini to somewhere around Po Chun Tong. Martini is anarchist, and they are a strong believer in communism. The Khmer Rouge said that you are not the revolutionists, so you should go to the French embassy. So they took the two couple to the French embassy. They praised the Khmer Rouge revolution. At that time, the Khmer Rouge threatened them with force, saying that if they did not keep silent, they would be hit. Question. Mr. Francois Pongso, in your observation and assessment, what was the refugees, both foreign nationals and Cambodian nationals, aside from the 7 super traitors and after the 7 super traitors were taken away, as well as the Cambodian men with French wife who had to leave the embassy compound, how many left in the embassy? Response. Finally, there were around 500 people left, both Cambodian national and foreigners. Around 500 left. And then there were 500 more refugees of Pakistani national. They came along with Kao Supir. It is the organization. They gather foreigners to come and take refuge in the French embassy. Question. Just now you also said that there were trucks taking foreigners from the French embassy to the Cambodian-Thai border. I would like to expand from this. When you talk about a fleet of trucks taking foreigners out of the French embassy, was the fleet of trucks organized by the Khmer Rouge soldier? And can you describe the first day of departure of these foreign nationals from the French embassy? Response. The first day they left the embassy was on the 30th of April, and then the second wave of transport was on the 7th of May. And then later there was around 23rd or 24th. Francois Bizot was the negotiators with the Khmer Rouge, and he told me that there had been meetings with the leaders of the Khmer Rouge. I did not know which level of the Khmer Rouge cadres he met and negotiated with, but he told me that the government of France agreed to prepare the airplanes in order to take the foreign nationals out of the French embassy. And then the Khmer Rouge was very angry. He was very upset. At that time, he said that they did not agree with the means of transport from the imperialist means of transport. So they decided to take them out by the trucks on the 30th of April. Particularly those who were vulnerable to the Khmer Rouge, for example, the CIA leaders, ladies who were pregnant at that time, or elderly people, they had to leave first. And then on the first day, there was no information. The second day, there was no information either. And then we thought that probably the Khmer Rouge had already killed them, or one day we would be killed. So on the fourth day, I heard the information from those people that they had already reached Poi Pat. And then on the 7th of May, on this particular juncture, I would like to say some words of praise for the Khmer Rouge. They did not ask any question at all. They did not even bother to check passport. There was an association. We had a certain experience with the communists when we got to Hanoi and Beijing in 1949 in Beijing, and then communist in 1954. The Vietnamese communists and Beijing communists check everything. They search everything, even a small note in your pocket. They would seriously checked, and they would even probably put the person in jail as well for keeping a small note in the pocket. But the Khmer Rouge did not do that. As a matter of fact, the Khmer Rouge did not ask us even a word, not even about our passport. The Khmer Rouge did not even bother to look at the passport we held. And then at that time we thought that we could probably save some of the Cambodians who stayed with us.
The President, thank you. You mentioned about the evacuation of the foreigners, the first batch on the 30th of April 1975, and you said you also left Phnom Penh Embassy on the 7th of May 1975. Was that the last batch already when you were being sent out? Response: yes, it was. And I had to leave the key for the embassy to Comrade Nyam, who was the head of the division conquering the eastern part of the city. Comrade Nyam told me to leave Phnom Penh for Paris. And after the country had been cleaned, he said he would warmly welcome me back. After that, there was no foreigner in Cambodia. The president, during the time of the evacuation of the foreigners out of the French embassy, were these people escorted by soldiers or armed men? And did you have to travel by cars or vehicles all the way from Phnom Penh to Poi Pat? Response: we wanted to travel on foot because we would like to know what or the situation the people were living in the countryside, but we were not allowed to walk. We had to take the vehicles, but we did not see any soul, any people. We took the GMC trucks, and the Khmer Rouge soldiers had to remain standing on the trucks with us, and we had to cross several creeks, bridges, and rivers. And in Kampong Chnang, we were stopped, and we had our nice meal. By 8 o'clock, we reached Posat province. One of the bridges broke, and we had to stop there for a while. The Khmer Rouge allowed us to pick some fruits if we liked, but we didn't dare picking any fruits. And then we were received by tourists' bus. The bus that could accommodate about 80 people. And we were received by more Khmer Rouge who were older than the previous soldiers who had escorted us. And from that on, we were with only one soldier per vehicle. And I told a man on the truck told me, although he was a soldier, he said he would like to go to France as well. And I could tell from that moment that even a cadre from the Khmer Rouge clique also was afraid of their own people. The president: thank you. According to your best recollection, on what date did you leave border checkpoint? The president: Mr. Witness, could you please hold on? Response: I don't remember whether I left Phnom Penh on the 7th of May or I reached the border on the 7th of May. But it was on that day. And I had to carry some bags, a suitcase belonging to a consular official. And I was smiling. And people did not even bother to ask me any question at the checkpoint, and I had been allowed to leave the country easily. A French man, Mr. Laporte, who has passed away and who got married to a Cambodian woman, and he had to leave his wife behind. Question: when you reached the border, Did you see Khmer Rouge being very vigilant or be on guards at the checkpoint? Response, there were very few soldiers. It was very peaceful. It was peace, and I could see that it was a quiet place. No soldiers were seen. The President, thank you. I have the final question for you, and I should have asked you already a while ago, but I would like to ask you now, Mr. Pongsho. You said about the peace negotiation between the leaders of the Republican regime, and you mentioned about Samdech Huot Tat. In your testimony, you emphasized that there was a form of negotiation underway. Can you please tell the chamber how did you learn about this information? And how many people from the Republican side who engaged in the negotiation, and how many people from the Khmer Rouge side were part in this agreement, and where did it happen? Response, actually there was no such negotiation. May Sejong would like the soldiers to surrender, the Republican soldiers to disarm, and there was no negotiation at all. Samdech Huot Tat advised everyone to unite, to work together to rebuild the country. But later on, there was an announcement by someone. I believe that that person could have been the people from the Ronald's regime who were wearing black clothes and sent to negotiate with the Khmer Rouge. But then he was stopped immediately when he was grabbing the microphone, because the Khmer Rouge said there was no form of negotiation at all. The Khmer Rouge won the victory and they were the victors, and there was no negotiation. If there was, there could have been long before the victory was won. The President, could you also tell where this event happened? Response, it took place at the Ministry of Information, as I was told. It was near the railway station. I think it perhaps happened there, because I also heard that Long Boret also surrendered. And I also heard that the Long Boret was executed, but I only heard of this. The President, thank you, Mr. Pongsho. I would like to know whether fellow judges of the bench wish to have some questions for the witness. Judge Lavian, you may now proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I am Judge Jean-Marc Lavergne, and I have a few questions to put to you, Father Pongsho. I would like to ask you if it's possible to speak a bit more slowly. Interpreters are in the booth, and they must complete their task. And if you speak too fast, it's going to become extremely difficult. So I also believe that the interpreters are requesting that we use only one single language. I don't know if they only want to use French for us to communicate, but in any case, I think what we should avoid is that you don't speak in French and in Khmer at the same time. So, of course, you're free to use the language you wish, but please speak slowly. Thank you. So I indeed have a few questions to put to you, and I would like to revisit your personal history. You explained to the court that you arrived in Cambodia a while ago, in 1965. And prior to that, you had studied, I imagine, in order to become a priest. And I also understand that you had been a soldier and that you took part in difficult events, because I understand that you were a paratrooper during the Algerian War. So can you confirm this? Please pay attention to the microphone, because
Response. In France, when we are 20 years old, we were obliged to join the army, and I was conscripted. And I belong to a parachute unit in the army, in the regular army unit. And I had to serve in Algeria for 2.5 years. And from then on, I started to hate war, because war brought all the destruction.
now regarding your experience in Cambodia, and I noted this down, I'd like you to confirm this, that when you arrived, you started working in Phnom Penh, and you were living on Choi Chong Va Peninsula, and you were working in a community called Muat Krasas. I apologize for my bad pronunciation in Khmer, but I also understood that you went to Stung Treng, and that you were then went to work in Battambang and at Kdol Le, which is north of Kompong Cham, and then you worked in Kompong Cham itself, and then you arrived in Phnom Penh. Is this true? And can you tell us when you were in Battambang and when you were in Kompong Cham, and why you left Kompong Cham?
Response. Person who was a governor and a bishop rather, and we had to learn Khmer for 3 years, 6 months, and we moved to Choi Chongwa location near Pasteur Hospital, and I spoke French a lot, and we went to the paddy fields, to the countryside, living with the peasants. For 2 months I was there, and then I came to Phnom Penh in 1966 in September to receive someone, and I had later on moved to Kompong Cham to continue learning Khmer. And at Stung Treng, I heard that the Americans already started bombing the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Ho Chi Minh was about 80 to 100 kilometers far away from Stung Treng, but I could hear bombs being dropped by the Americans. About 1 million tons of bombs were dropped. And Mr. Kissinger, according to the documents we read, that were exposed in public last year. Kissinger asked Nixon to use atomic bomb to destroy and block Ho Chi Minh Trail. At that time, Samdech Sihanouk, perhaps intentionally or not intentionally, from 1965, allowed the Chinese weapons and Soviet weapons being transported all the way to the port of Sihanoukville and being transported from there to Nec Luang and to Stung Trang. I talked about this because these are what I saw, and people who are good at historians could also challenge this. But King Norodom Sihanouk, whether he should be accountable for this or not, it's up to the historians, because I saw truckloads of weapons being transported from Nec Luang to Svay Rieng, from Nec Luang to Memot, and from Nec Luang to Stung Trang. And I, on one occasion, saw an overturned truck filled with weapons. I would leave the province at about 6:30, and I also saw the North Vietnamese soldiers.
I have a bit of trouble here. I have a bit trouble which year you're referring to. And I'd also like to backtrack to the question that I asked you, which is, when were you in Battambang, and when were you in Kampong Cham, and why you left Kampong Cham?
Response. In 1966 and 1977, I saw the North Vietnamese soldiers, and I also saw weapons being transported from Nec Luang. In 1987, I went to Battambang. I asked that I be sent to Battambang because we could speak Khmer very well, and it would do a lot of good for us to go to Battambang. And we knew that in Battambang there were some Christians communities from even back in 1972, so I was there to also teach Christians. It was back then.
The number was 1782.
Then I was asked to go to Kdol in Battambang for 1.5 years. Then moved to Kampong Cham. It was on the 15th of August when I was in Kampong Cham, and I remained in the province until the war broke out, when King Norodom Sihanouk was toppled down on the 17th or 18th of March 1970. On the 29th, people came from the east, crossing from Kampong Cham to Phnom Penh, who were met by the Lon Nol soldiers, and they were executed. 100 of them were killed. and colonial government also executed innocent Vietnamese people, and crimes of genocide was already committed in 1970 when about 2,000 people were executed. The colonial government soldiers killed unarmed and innocent Vietnamese civilians. With the bishop, we met Mr. In Tam, who was the Kampong Cham's governor, and I asked him for permission to bring the Christian Community Association and Christians to come back to Kampong Cham. At Phnom Bang Chey, rather Ong Chey, we were bombed, and when I reached the riverbanks, I saw the South Vietnamese troops who asked me what nationality I was. They asked whether I was American, and I said I was French. And at that time, I noted that people were listening to the speech delivered by Prince Norodom Sihanouk from Peking. Prince Norodom Sihanouk appealed to all the people in Cambodia to enter Maki jungle. People did not know what Maki jungle was at that time. And when I went to receive some Christians, I was also fired at, and I was warned not to go to Kampong Cham again, because if I did so, then I would also be caught in the battlefield. So I did not take the boat to Kampong Cham. I took a motorbike. At that time, I was warned that today I was lucky because I was not killed, but if I kept breaching this rule or order, then I would end up being killed on another occasion.
It's maybe a bit too complex for you. So, is it important for you to understand everything? Well, answers the judge, is that our jurisdiction is very limited. The rest interests us as context. So we shouldn't go into detail, but simply just for the purposes of the transcript, I understood that you arrived in Battambang in 1967, and then you went to Kampong Cham, and that you left Kampong Cham in 1970 after the events that you described. Is that the case?
Yeah.
And then you stayed in Phnom Penh, and I understood that you were in charge of a student home, and you had a specific mission, which was to translate the Bible into Khmer. Is that the case? And if you could tell me if there was a very specific reason for translating the Bible into Khmer.
Response. I received students who came to study because there was nowhere else they could stay, there were a lot of students from the countryside who came to study in the city, this location, and I received about 50 people or students, and I translated the Bible into Khmer because I believe that after we were expelled from the country, we could leave behind the materials for our Christians.
I did not translate the Bible back then, but many other documents to allow a community that would be deprived of our help to live on their own. Please, Father, I think it's really, really important that we avoid changes in languages during your testimony. So if you want to speak in Khmer, please continue speaking in Khmer.
Voilà, donc,
So what I understood, and tell me if this is so, is that you started translating the Bible in Khmer because it was necessary to plan for the future and to plan for the possibility that the priests could no longer stay in Cambodia, and therefore Khmer Christians would have to fend for themselves.
alors, juste un petit retour en arrière.
Well, I'd like just to backtrack a little bit again. We spoke about the deposition of Prince Norodom Sihanouk in March 1970, the tragic events that then followed. And can you tell us, however, if many people thought that this brought some hope, wasn't there any hope that things would change?
មានជនជាតិខ្មែរដូចជា
Response. All Cambodian people from all walks of life. We could also see that some people supported us, some didn't. Or some supported the leaders. Some hated King Norodom Sihanouk when some didn't. In 1967, King Norodom Sihanouk displayed the Apsara movie, and people didn't like that. People started to hate him from then because that movie depicts some kind of corruption in Phnom Penh, and people didn't like it. And a teacher, as I remember, bought a can of beer to celebrate the end of the reign of King Norodom Sihanouk. They celebrated when King Sihanouk was toppled down, and the situation was changing, and peasants from the beginning supported Prince Norodom Sihanouk, but intellectuals in Phnom Penh, the majority of them didn't support him.
Est-ce qu'on peut dire que
Can it be said that it was a difference that set apart the city and the countryside? Response.
ផ្លេចពីគ្នាប៉ុន្តែអំពីរឿងដេញប្រជាជន
But concerning the evacuation of people out of the city, we must know that Cambodian people before the colonial era, particularly during the Angkorian period or sometime in 1623, when Annam established its barrack in Prenoco, then Annam and Siem were fighting against one another on Cambodian territory. At that time, there was no cities, and Cambodian people.
Je vous arrête.
I'm afraid I have to interrupt you, Father Poncho. One moment, please. I need to interrupt you because there are some clarifications needed. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that you're referring to the Funan. No, then that was a misunderstanding on my part.
From Annam in 1623, Annam at that time took control of Prenoco, or Saigon, currently Saigon, the southern city of Vietnam in the present day. At that time, Annam soldier and the Siem soldier were fighting against each other on Cambodian territory. At that time, there was no city. And the cities that were established, then the French control, and then it was called the French colonialism. And when the French hand over independence to Cambodia, there were some Chinese. There were 6,200 Chinese and a few thousand Vietnamese as well at that time. And they have their own ethnic groups aside from the mainstream Cambodian people. There are around 60% Vietnamese and 10% Chinese. And the Khmer Rouge consider some people as compradors. They traded with the people. They bought the vegetables and crops from the people produced in the countryside. So the Khmer Rouge that follow Marxist-Leninist line, they wanted to eliminate the city, and they want the country to be equal. They want to eliminate social injustice. They want everyone to be equal. They did not want to mistreat people. But we have to understand the rationale behind this. The President, thank you, Judge, and thank you, Mr. Francois Pongso. The time is now appropriate for lunch break. The court is now adjourned, and we will resume at 1:30 this afternoon. Court officer, please arrange the waiting room for the witness to rest during lunchtime, and then please have him back in this courtroom before 1:30 this afternoon. Security guards are instructed to bring Mr. Kyew Sampon to the holding cell downstairs and have him back in this courtroom before 1:30 this afternoon. The court is now adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ
ការជំនុំជម្រះក្តីអតីតមានដឹកនាំជាន់ខ្ពស់នៃរបបកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យនៅអង្គជំនុំជម្រះពីសម័យក្នុងតុលាការកម្ពុជាដែលហៅកាត់ថាអវតកបានចាក់ទាញការចាប់អារម្មណ៍យ៉ាងខ្លាំងពីប្រជាជនកម្ពុជានិងពីពិភពលោកទាំងមូលអវតកដែលគេស្គាល់ថាជាតុលាការខ្មែរក្រហមគឺជាតុលាការជាតិដែលត្រូវបានបង្កើតឡើងដើម្បីជំនុំជម្រះក្តីមេដឹកនាំជាន់ខ្ពស់និងអ្នកដែលទទួលខុសត្រូវខ្ពស់បំផុតចំពោះអក្រិតកម្មដែលត្រូវបានប្រព្រឹត្តក្នុងអំឡុងរបបកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យពីថ្ងៃទី17ខែមេសាឆ្នាំ1975ដល់ថ្ងៃទី6ខែមករាឆ្នាំ1979អបតកដំណើរការនីតិវិធីរបស់ខ្លួនដោយប្រើប្រាស់ទាំងច្បាប់ជាតិនិងច្បាប់អន្តរជាតិអបតកបាននឹងកំពុងដំណើរការយ៉ាងរលូនលើសំណុំរឿង002ហើយបានបញ្ចប់សំណុំរឿង001ទាំងស្រុងជាកាលពីថ្ងៃទី3ខែកុម្ភៈឆ្នាំ2012អង្គជំនុំជម្រះតុលាការកំពូលបានប្រកាសសាលិកាស្ថាពរក្នុងសំណុំរឿង001ប្រឆាំងនឹងកាន់ងាយយូហៅដុចអតីតប្រធានមន្ត្រីស21នៅទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញនិងបានផ្ដន្ទាទោសដាក់ពន្ធនាគារអស់មួយជីវិតពីបទឧក្រិដ្ឋប្រឆាំងនឹងមនុស្សជាតិនិងការរំលោភបំពានយ៉ាងធ្ងន់ធ្ងរលើអនុសញ្ញាទីក្រុងហ្សឺណែវឆ្នាំ1949នៅក្នុងសាលិកាស្ថាពរអង្គជំនុំជម្រះតុលាការកំពូលបានយល់ស្របជាមួយនឹងសាលក្រម